EC3 Slammiversary. It rhymes. EC3 continues to tease that he will be appearing at Slammiversary. He will be one of the former ex-WWE stars to be appearing at Impact Wrestling Slammiversary pay-per-view on July 18th. So many people have been speculated to be appearing at this point. Impact Wrestling has been teasing so many people to be appearing at Slammiversary at this point. It's a very, very exciting time for Impact Wrestling right now, isn't it? But EC3, he has been stirring it up on social media, hasn't he? If it's not the AEW puns video promo that he uploaded to his Twitter account, if it's not the "There is no honor in what we do" promo teasing Ring of Honor that he uploaded onto his social media platforms, he has also been teasing that he's going to be headed back to Impact Wrestling. Of course, Impact Wrestling has also teased that EC3 will be appearing on the show. If it's not been playing his music during or after a Moose match, if it's not the TNA World Heavyweight Champion Moose teasing or mocking EC3 on social media using a mocking of EC3's promos that he has been doing, EC3 has been stirring it up now by actually dropping hints that he will be appearing at Slammiversary on July 18th. Now, of course, let's backtrack a little bit here. The Slammiversary main event, as of the time of recording, is a fatal four-way match for the Impact World Championship. Of course, the Impact World Championship now vacant because Tessa Blanchard has been fired from the company and stripped of the Impact World Championship. So the Impact World Championship is in a state of flux right now, but we will have a brand new Impact World Champion at Slammiversary because it's going to be contested in a fatal four-way match. We're going to have Ace Austin go up against Eddie Edwards, go up against Trey, and a mystery fourth opponent. Now, I mentioned yesterday, I did a video yesterday about who that fourth opponent could be at Impact Wrestling Slammiversary pay-per-view. Impact Wrestling actually did a promo, a vignette this past week in which Ace Austin, Eddie Edwards, and Trey all spoke about the opportunity of becoming the Impact World Champion at Slammiversary. But Impact also teased numerous ex-Impact Wrestling superstars and ex-TNA and Impact World Heavyweight Champions in that video about who could be the next, or the mystery rather, fourth competitor at Slammiversary. Now, EC3, like I mentioned earlier, has been stirring the pot when it comes to this. He took to Facebook Live this week and commented on a possible return to Impact Wrestling. A lot of people wasn't speculating on it, EC3 himself. I've said numerous times that I think EC3 is going to go back to Impact Wrestling, but even he has dropped more hints now. Impact has, of course, announced that a former Impact World Champion will be returning to the company. I don't think they specifically said that the competitor in the Fatal 4-Way match at Slammiversary is going to be a former Impact World Champion. They've just said that a former Impact World Champion is appearing at Slammiversary. So I've seen a bit of misinformation out there regarding that at the moment. Some articles I've read online have said, oh, the fourth guy in the Impact World Championship match at Slammiversary is going to be a former Impact World Champion. I don't think that's specifically what Impact have said. They've just said broadly that a former Impact World Champion will be will be returning to the company then. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. But they've also confirmed, Impact Wrestling, Pronams Pal, they have confirmed that a former Impact World Champion will be returning to the company and will be bringing a few friends with him. So does that mean Aces and Eights? Does that mean EC3 and some former WWE stars with him? It's all very much up in the air at the moment. But this Facebook Live video that EC3 conducted this past week, which I mentioned earlier, and I'll put a link to it in the description box below as well. EC3 was asked about possibly being the mystery man in the Slammiversary main event, which he responded with this quote, and this is a fascinating quote that EC3 has mentioned here. He said, quote, July 18th is a great day for a fight. I will fight July 18th. Now, that has obviously got a lot of people talking. Now, also, before we get into the analysis of that quote, he actually did say a few other things here. Another fan commented that they're looking forward to Slammiversary, and EC3 responded, quote, it's probably gonna be a great show, end quote. And when asked where he will decide where he is going to go next, where is EC3 going to go next, EC3 responded, quote, I am going to go wherever my heart takes me, wherever a fight arises that I need to fight him, end quote. Now, there's a lot to break down there, even though it's very little words by EC3. Like, he's not going to come out, obviously, and openly say, oh yeah, I'm going back to Impact Wrestling. Didn't you know? July 18th, Slammiversary, I'm the fourth guy in the main event. Obviously, that's not going to happen. but there's a lot of hint and subtlety there, which is what EC3 has been doing a lot of recently, and what he's very, very good at. He is very good at getting people talking about him and getting people talking about Impact Wrestling, and that's what EC3 and Impact Wrestling have been doing a lot recently. Impact Wrestling has more people talking about them now than I think they've had for a very, very, very long time when it comes to Slammiversary, when it comes to these ex-WWE stars coming in, when it comes to these former Impact Wrestling stars returning, when it comes to the return of TNA, when it comes to the vacating of the Impact World Championship. There is so much going on right now in Impact Wrestling. It's a really exciting time for the company. And look, the last few years, Impact Wrestling has got slowly better, but prior to that, there weren't many exciting times when it came to Impact Wrestling. It was a tarnished brand, and they've done a great job at rebuilding it, and I think Slammiversary is just going to be the next step in doing that. Now, EC3 here, he says July 18th. He says July 18th is a great day for a fight, and most importantly, he says I will fight on July 18th, and wouldn't you know it, Slammiversary takes place on July 18th too. Do I think this is complete confirmation that EC3 is going to appear at Slammiversary? Of course it isn't. Things can happen, things can change. He might just be messing with the people that are watching or listening to him. Like I said before, EC3, ever since he was released by WWE in April of this year, his big task has been to get people talking about him, to get people excited to see him again. Look, his run in WWE, NXT was fine, but on Raw and SmackDown left a lot to be desired because he never really appeared that much. He beat Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley. That got those in power upset with him, and then he pretty much never appeared again. So that's the case with EC3. So his job in the interim, before he does sign with the company, is to get people talking about him, get people excited to where he's going to go next, and figure out where he can go next, where he can make the biggest impact, pun intended there. So July 18th, of course, is Slammiversary, but it's also, people have been speculating the date in which the WWE non-compete clause expires. That date is a very, very interesting one because some people have speculated that it isn't actually July 18th in which the non-compete clause ends for the stars that were released by WWE. Some people have speculated it's actually like July 15th because that would fall on a Wednesday, and it was Black Wednesday, and that was 3 months ago. So it's a very interesting one, that one. Some people are actually speculating that all these people that are saying July 18th, July 18th, July 18th, you know, we've seen Zack Ryder, Brian Myers, EC3 and others talk about this July 18th date. But some people have speculated that actually the non-compete clause actually expires on July 14th or July 15th, which if that's the case, these superstars and these wrestlers hyping up this July 18th date may be an indication as to where they're going, and that being Impact Wrestling. Look, EC3 has openly said that in Slammiversary he thinks it's going to be a great show. He says that he will fight on July 18th, and he says that he's going to go wherever his heart takes him. His heart, I would speculate, is in Impact Wrestling. It's where his biggest success has ever been. Right? He was two-time TNA World Heavyweight Champion, former TNA, was it Grand Champion? His best success, the reason that he is EC3 right now, and the reason he was EC3 when he went back to WWE, he got over as EC3 because of Impact Wrestling, right? When he was released by WWE originally as Derek Bateman, Impact Wrestling, TNA, they took a chance on him, made him EC3, made him the nephew of Dixie Carter, pushed him as hard as they could, gave him an opportunity to get over, which he did. He beat the likes of Sting, he beat the likes of Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, amongst others, and made himself into a main event level name, a main event player, a world champion, and showed what he can really do. I mentioned before, is EC3 the best guy in the ring? No, but he's really damn good on the microphone, and I think that's what he proved in Impact Wrestling the first time around, and if anything, you're getting a better version of EC3 right now, right? The first time when he was there, he was improving. I think his ultimate aim, though, was to leave Impact Wrestling eventually and go back to WWE, go back to the big stage, and showed that they made a mistake, right? Well, this time, he's got no interest ever in going back to WWE. That ship has plainly sailed. They will never, ever see anything in him. He was there twice. They did nothing with him twice. He is not going back to WWE. What he does have right now is a huge chip on his shoulder. he has something to prove, like with all of these guys that got released, like Gallows and Anderson, like Heath Slater, like Eric Young, like whoever that got released by WWE in April. They have a massive chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove. And when EC3 has a chip on his shoulder, and when he has something to prove, you're going to know that these promos that he's going to cut, or has been cutting on social media right now, but the ones that he cuts in Impact Wrestling, they're going to be pretty damn good. They're going to be pretty intense, pretty reality-based, pretty emotion-filled, like we saw with Heath Slater on Monday Night Raw this week. We're going to get that from the likes of Heath Slater and the likes of EC3, and hopefully they're going to happen in Impact Wrestling. So this latest tease from EC3 from me, highlighting the July 18th date, saying that he will fight on July 18th, and saying that he's going to go to a place where he needs to fight, they're just small hints, I think. EC3 to Impact for me was always a given, because I don't think they would play EC3's music on Impact Wrestling if something wasn't in place. Now, some people will speculate. Remember, way back, when was this, in May? It may have been May or the start of June. Impact Wrestling started running these commercials for Slammiversary, saying that we could possibly see ex-WWE stars returning to the company, former Impact Wrestling stars returning to the company, and they showed a whole boatload of names there, didn't they? Some names which it's unlikely are going to sign with Impact Wrestling. One of the names included Drake Maverick, right? Rockstar Spud, who has a lot of history in Impact Wrestling, and he still at the time was going to have this storyline with WWE. I believe at the time he was genuinely released, but there was still this: is he not going to stay with WWE? So a lot of people at the time thought, oh, well, Impact Wrestling, are they just playing it up for views? Are they just trying to get attention? And there probably was a part of that, without a shadow of a doubt. There probably was a part of that Impact were trying to get attention there. But I think they already had things in place. And we've seen those things in place with, like I said, EC3's music playing on Impact. Why would those things play on Impact? Why would Impact Wrestling use time on their television show to play music like that for a specific character, for a specific wrestler, if they didn't have something in place? So I think EC3 to Impact Wrestling, or returning to Impact Wrestling rather, is a done deal. I think it's definitely going to happen. I don't think we're going to see EC3 in AEW. I don't think we're going to see him in Ring of Honor. When it comes to Ring of Honor, I mentioned it in the Bully Ray videos, they're not handing out new contracts at the moment except for exceptional circumstances. And I'm not even sure Ring of Honor at the moment could offer a contract like Impact Wrestling could to EC3. So I think Ring of Honor isn't going to happen. When it comes to AEW, look, EC3 could absolutely go to AEW. Why couldn't he go to AEW? My point is, and it's been the same point I've mentioned for Zack Ryder and the same I mentioned for Heath Slater, it's slightly different for EC3 because I do think EC3 is a bigger star than those two. But EC3 in AEW, what can he realistically, what's the best that he can achieve? And if I was him, that's what I would look at. Realistically, what is the best that I can achieve if I go to AEW? And I think he's got the same glass ceiling there that a likes of a Heath Slater or a Zack Ryder or Brian Myers, etc., would have if they went to AEW. I think they could maybe get a TNT Championship run, maybe, but not right now because Cody's holding the title, and Cody's one of the biggest stars in the company, arguably, the biggest AEW babyface, right? Maybe not John. Maybe John Moxley's a bit higher than him there. So EC3, what's the most he could do? He could be in a TNT Open Challenge championship match, which he would lose. Then he might appear on the occasional AEW Dynamite, but mostly he would probably appear on AEW Dark. And then he's kind of in the same position that he was in WWE. He's just floundering. It's not the best use of his abilities. You know that if EC3 and a Zack Ryder and a Heath Slater, if they go to Impact Wrestling right now, they're going to be prominently featured. They're going to be in the main event scene. Potentially EC3 at Slammiversary could become the Impact World Champion. I think that's an absolute possibility, and we'll touch on that in a second. I just think it's a better use of his time and a better use for his ability and a better spotlight than he would get anywhere else. So I think it's already been done. I would be very, very surprised if at least, I don't think a contract has been signed at the moment because it can't be legally. However, I would be surprised if a verbal deal between EC3 and Impact hasn't been done. His whole career, realistically, his biggest high spots in his career were in Impact Wrestling, which obviously Impact Wrestling owns all the footage of that. They can present this really, really well. There is so much footage that Impact has of EC3's biggest moments, his best promos, his best matches, defeating these big names. he can come into Impact Wrestling not only and become world champion, but they can make him look like a star. Impact Wrestling can build this new version of the company, which is evolving all the time at the moment, around an EC3, and know he's going to be there for the long haul because he doesn't want to go anywhere else, because he doesn't need to go anywhere else now. You know, AEW for me isn't a good option. Ring of Honor isn't an option. NWA, they're not even doing shows, and he's never going back to WWE after that hellacious, horrible run that he had there prior to this. So I think EC3 is pretty much a cert for Impact Wrestling. Now, does that mean that he is the fourth guy at Slammiversary? I mentioned this yesterday. My top 3 people that I think were going to be that fourth guy for Slammiversary was EC3, Bully Ray, and Eric Young. Now, Eric Young looks to be doing the whole Super Eric thing at the moment, so I think that's less likely than EC3 and Bully Ray. I think Bully Ray's a really interesting one right now. The whole Aces and Eights thing is still bubbling nicely in Impact Wrestling. It's pretty much a done deal, like I said, with EC3. It's pretty much a done deal that EC3 is coming back to Impact Wrestling, but it's also a done deal that Aces and Eights are returning to Impact Wrestling as well. So Bully Ray, obviously just been released from Ring of Honor, or his contract has expired with Ring of Honor. He's a free agent. He can appear anywhere as soon as he wants to, so he is definitely a possibility to appear at Slammiversary, be the fourth guy, and return with Aces and Eights. The more I think about it, and once I saw this footage of EC3 hyping up July 18th and saying he's going to fight on July 18th, I think it's likely to be EC3 now. Not only is EC3 obviously returning to the company, I think at this point, but I think it's highly likely that he is the fourth guy at Slammiversary. Now, I mentioned this prior, but I'll go over this again. I think there's certain ways that Impact can do this, and I think there's a lot of interesting ways here that Impact Wrestling can do something quite creative and quite innovative when it comes to EC3, when it comes to the returning, or ex-WWE guys, the returning Impact Wrestling stars, the former TNA World Heavyweight Champions, and Moose. There's a lot of spinning plates here, but I think it could all culminate in something really, really interesting and really, really fun in the future when it comes to Impact Wrestling. Now, I mentioned, so let's say that EC3 is the fourth guy at Slammiversary, right? He goes up against Ace Austin, Eddie Edwards, and Trey, beats them all, and becomes the Impact World Champion on his very first night back with the company. Certainly a possibility. If he becomes the Impact World Champion, who has he been feuding with, or who has been taking shots specifically at EC3 on social media? That would be Moose. I mentioned earlier, Moose actually did a mocking promo of pretty much a shot-for-shot remake of EC3's vignette about AEW and Ring of Honor that he's been posting. If anything, it actually looked like it was shot in the exact same place, which if that is the case, then you start to think, okay, Impact Wrestling were behind the EC3 promos, so they're obviously already in contact and filming stuff with him. It's very, then you start to see how everything links together. You start to see the cotton wool string linking together on my crazy board of theories here about Impact Wrestling. So if EC3 does win the Impact World Championship at Slammiversary, you have Moose, who is defending the TNA World Heavyweight Championship against Tommy Dreamer at Slammiversary. I don't think it's any big surprise that I think Moose is going to retain here. Personally, I'd like to see Moose go up against a former TNA star, or maybe a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. There's certainly those on the market right now that they could have done. Is Tommy Dreamer the best match and the most exciting match for Moose at Slammiversary for the title? Not really. And I wasn't massive on the whole Tommy Dreamer promo this past week on Impact Wrestling, where he kind of treated the title a little bit like a joke, a bit like, oh, I've spoken to the TNA World Championship executive committee, and I've spoken to the the legal officials and all this sort of stuff, trying to basically say, the belt doesn't exist, you're stupid for saying it doesn't exist, which is true, and it is a good point, but he's going around saying he's the real world champion, and that bout, that lineage does have quite a lot of history with it. We've seen some unbelievable icons of professional wrestling hold that title, a Kurt Angle, a Sting, whoever, Jeff Hardy, whatever. We've seen some big names hold that title, that specific title, so to degrade it a little bit like that, I wasn't massive on, and just seeing Moose as the champion, as that champion, or holding that bout, I mean, technically it isn't a real title anymore, or a valid title anymore, but holding it just gives him credibility. So I didn't like that Tommy Dreamer promo this past week on Impact. I thought that was a little bit, it wasn't for me. But, of course, like I mentioned there, so Moose goes up against Tommy Dreamer at Slammiversary. I think he retains pretty comfortably. It'll be a good match, obviously near falls, but I think Moose will retain there. So Moose is still the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, for what that's worth. He's calling himself the real champion. He's been throwing pot shots at EC3 on social media. EC3 is now back with the company, and then EC3 is the Impact World Champion, then you can start doing this whole angle that I've started pitching here about Impact versus TNA, right? So you can have EC3 representing Impact as the Impact World Champion. Then you can have Moose representing TNA as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, which is ironic because it should be the other way around, right? Moose is more synonymous, I think, with Impact Wrestling, whereas EC3, even though it was rebranded as Impact Wrestling at the time, he had the old TNA World Heavyweight Championship bout, right? It was reminiscent of the old TNA days. So they're both fighting for their cause there. They have the feud to see who is the real world champion, right? Who is the real world champion? Is it EC3 as the Impact World Champion, or is it Moose with the TNA World Heavyweight Championship? And then Moose, being this TNA World Heavyweight Champion, calling himself the real world champion, this facilitates the return of the old school TNA, right? I mentioned this before, that Impact have been teasing the return of TNA for a very, very long time now, right? They've been teasing the return of TNA all the way back in, I believe, April of this year. Around WrestleMania weekend time, they were going to bring back some TNA stars, some old TNA stars, and do a TNA style show, right? They were going to bring back Chris Sabin, bring back Aces and Eights. You've already got Scott D'Amore there, Johnny Swinger. Those were old TNA names, right? Mr. Anderson, D'Lo Brown. They were going to bring them back and have a one-off TNA show. That got cancelled, obviously, due to the pandemic, but we're still seeing some of these old TNA stars going to come back to Impact Wrestling. So I definitely think we can do a feud here, which can be World Champion versus World Champion. Who is the real World Champion? EC3 or Moose. That'll be really fun. But it also facilitates the return of these older TNA stars, and we can maybe even have an Impact versus TNA feud. I've seen some people in the comment section, which I love, by the way. I love interacting with all of you in the comment section below. They mentioned that you could actually almost do a brand split. You could do an Impact versus, and you can have a TNA. I'm not sure if they will. I don't think Impact is in the position to do that at the moment. But look, by all accounts, Access TV is owned by Anthem, which owns Impact Wrestling. Anthem can do whatever they want. If Anthem wants to give TNA or Impact Wrestling another show on Access TV in the week, they do what they want. It's their network, it's their company, it's their show. If they want to have an Impact on a Tuesday and they want to have TNA on a Thursday, which was traditionally Impact slot, right? The TNA slot, they could do it. Why not? Why not? I think the Impact Wrestling does good ratings on Access TV. They're by all accounts very happy with the ratings that they do. So why not, right? It could be really fun. It could be really fun. And I know I've strayed from the point here slightly when it comes to EC3. So EC3, July 18th, he said July 18th is a great day for a fight. He is going to fight on July 18th. He's mentioned Slammiversary is going to be a great show. Why is it going to be a great show? That's because EC3 is probably going to be there. And he said he's going to go where his heart takes him. His heart is Impact Wrestling, right? It's where he made his name. It's where he became a world champion, and it's where he became a star. So I think his heart is going to take him back home, and I think his heart's going to take him wherever there's a fight. He's going to fight on July 18th. That fight is Slammiversary, and that fight is the main event, the Fatal 4-Way match for the Impact World Championship between Ace Austin, Eddie Edwards, and Trey, and what I think will be EC3. But will he come alone? Will he bring other ex-WWE stars with him? We know Gallows and Anderson are coming to Impact Wrestling too. It's an exciting time. As I mentioned, it's a very, very exciting time for Impact Wrestling right now. The most buzz around the company, I think, for the longest time. They also announced some Zoom calls that they're going to do prior to Slammiversary as well, which I think is really exciting. It's just a great time to be an Impact Wrestling fan, and if you're watching this video and you haven't been watching Impact Wrestling recently, or you were a bit like me, you were a lapsed Impact fan just became tired of all the nonsense back in 2013, 14, 15, and the craziness that was going on in the company right now, give it a chance. That's all I'd say, is give it a chance. Things have changed and things are getting a lot better with that company, and it's a really exciting time to be not only a professional wrestling fan with all the pro wrestling that is on right now, but so many companies, and Impact Wrestling is one of them. So really exciting time. What are your thoughts? Of course, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts? Do you think EC3 will be the fourth competitor? What do you think about his comments that he made on Facebook Live? Is EC3 going to be returning to Impact Wrestling on July 18th? Will EC3 indeed fight on July 18th? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to as many as I can in there. I love responding to all of you in the Impact comments. Should we call it that? In the Impact comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms on the screen right now. That's at 365Wrestle on Twitter. and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.